thought she said gluten and hemp were not allowed in the theater. What kind of college is this? I don't know.
Why don't we talk a little bit about your new movie? And we have two clips tonight, because I think one clip I couldn't decide on any one to suggest just what this movie's like. But before we show the first one, maybe you could give us a little capsule, a little summary of what the movie's about.
Sure. The movie's about a guy. It's based on a novel by Dennis Lehane, who wrote a lot of other really good novels like Mystic River and Shutter Island and Gone Baby Gone and so on. And it's about a guy who becomes very disillusioned with life as a soldier in the First World War and comes home and decides that he doesn't want to follow anybody's orders anymore, and he's going to be an outlaw, and essentially decides to sort of choose and create his own morality as an outlaw at a time when the government did a tricky thing, which was turn millions of Americans into outlaws with the flip of a switch. If you were drinking alcohol, you were a perfectly law-abiding citizen, and then next day Prohibition happened and you were a criminal. And so the criminalization of America was happening in coincidence with his disillusionment from the First World War, and he becomes a criminal and a stick-up man and that sort of thing. I'm not sure what the clip is.
Well, the first clip is from early on, and I won't give it away because it's sort of exciting. Can we show the first one?
Let's go. What are you doing? Stop him. Look out!
The car chase actually goes on for many minutes more. It's one of the great car chases. And as I was telling Ben backstage, when I first saw it last week, I almost fell out of my seat because not only is it a great car chase and it's all right, but it adds, there's an extra dimension, the fact that it's these old-fashioned cars doing this stuff.
Well, yeah, as I was telling you, the true horsepower of one of those automobiles was 13. So we did do a little cheating and rebuilt some of the engines from the inside. So those are 400 horsepower engines in 13 horsepower chassis. We didn't upgrade the suspension or anything. So it's like, and the transmission is sort of like take your best guess. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like third. I'm not sure. And we did that. We had great car stunt guys, and it felt every bit as harrowing as it probably would have. The thing is, if we had shot it with the real cars in the real time, I'm afraid it would look like one of those like Keystone Cops silent picture, ding, 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 ding. But so we just thought we had to upgrade it a bit.
The other reason I liked it so much was it reminded me of all that, when I was a kid, we used to watch the 30s gangster movies on TV, and this has exactly that feel.
I'm glad you say that, because those were the movies. I got this book from somebody who cursed me and gave me a book called 1001 Movies to See Before You Die. And I thought, I've seen, I'm sure, most of these. And then, of course, I hadn't. And then I've been pouring through it. That was like 8 years ago, and I'm still trying to watch all the movies. But I got into a period of watching old Warner Brothers 30s and 40s gangster pictures. And they're spectacular. And they had these protagonists who were incredibly flawed, even by contemporary standards. And I had just finished directing Argo, and got sent by Leonardo DiCaprio, who I didn't know, but sent me, his production company sent me the galleys for this book. And right away, I thought, this could be like a love letter to one of those 30s, 40s gangster.
Well, it's a genre that what the movie made me realize it's a kind of underappreciated, undersung genre. We keep bringing back the Western every now and then, but this is the first time anybody's tried to do this. And the other thing I was reminded of, it made you wish that those directors back in the 30s and 40s had the resources
That's the special effects. So
It's great.
Well, you know, some of those movies in the 30s and 40s, they used live ammunition. Like they actually shot off real guns. Like, come out, fella, shoot up the beer cans. And it was like, when I discovered that, I thought, like, well, maybe we should be doing that. That didn't fly.
Lest we give you the wrong impression, it's not just a shoot 'em up movie. So let's show another clip that shows another side of the movie. That part was in Boston, and this part now, it's when the hero has moved to Florida.
What is your cause?
The distribution of the demon rum.
And that no man should rule another man's life.
If you corner the rum market, you will be a king.
Well, I'll still have to deal with Albert White.
But how will you hold the power once you have it?
Why? You don't think I'm strong enough?
I don't know if you're cruel enough. And if you are, that will be very sad.
Powerful men don't have to be cruel.
But they usually are.
So it almost goes without saying that this movie is very different from the movies you've made previous. I mean, it's a period piece. It has I think a different look. So I'm curious, what was the attraction? Was it the difference, or?
I wanted to pay homage to those movies, not only the 30s and 40s, but the 60s and 70s as well. When a kind of a crowd-pleasing, big blockbuster movie was something with big costumes and a lot of extras and great sets, and that transported you to another time, another era, another feeling. And in order to do that, obviously, we had to do it the old-fashioned way, which was get a lot of extras and build a lot of sets and make these fantastic costumes. And the style of that felt to me totally different than anything I had done before. It felt as though it needed to be a sort of a classic, very well-prepared, boarded movie that knew exactly where the camera was going to be at every time. There's not a lot of handheld. In fact, there's no handheld stuff in the movie. No really tight lenses to give you that telephoto look that started in the 70s. But rather wider frames that let the actors use the whole frame in the way that movies, the 30s, 40s, and 50s often would just be in wide shots, and they would sort of move from one part of the stage to the other part of the stage as the two or three actors would move over like that, And I wanted to have it, while using the film grammar of the contemporary era, I wanted to have it feel like a classic movie, and I wanted to plan it and orchestrate it as such.
Now, was it hard to talk people into letting you do this?
No, I probably should have been harder. I got lucky. I was coming off of Argo, and
Right.
Argo was successful, so I got to kind of cash in a chit, and this was it. Me saying, like, trust me. I know it's a period movie. I know it's drama. I know it doesn't look like there's nobody wearing a cape in the whole movie, but not that I have anything against capes.
We'll get to that later.
But and Warner Brothers was really supportive and enthusiastic and great about it. And I had a sense of the legacy of that studio having made those Cagney movies and making it there on those same stages where they made, White Heat and where they made Casablanca and where they made all those incredible movies. It was really quite I felt like an honor to me.
So, Live by Night is actually the novel in which it's based. Is actually the second book in a trilogy, and the third book is, I think, possibly even more exciting than the second one, the one that you've made.
Thank you.
Is it?
Listen, that's our pitch. That was on the poster. Almost as exciting as the next book.
The novel, not the no. But is it possible there'd be a sequel?
Well, it would be possible if there were a sequel, except that in Live by Night, the book, the protagonist is the 25. so I had to kick the age up a little bit of the character because the lead actor
Right.
who wanted to be in Live by Night was very vain.
Right.
And so we have a 35-year-old protagonist in this one, and now it would be very difficult to go back and put him back into his late 20s and start him over in Florida later. I sort of gummed it all up, basically.
If we could go backwards a little bit. I'm curious, and I'm sure everybody else is, how you got started in this business. And there's been a lot of mythology and I think a certain amount of anti-mythology. I was curious in doing my homework to discover that growing up, you were actually in Cambridge. You were actually a child actor, and that your father, in addition to doing many other things, was a sometime actor. And I have to confess, I was a little flabbergasted because I'm older than you, but I grew up in Boston, not very far from where you did, and there were no actors and there was no acting back then. There was the Red Sox and the Bruins, and neither were any good.
Well, some things don't change. My father was interested in theater, was a writer, was supporting himself as an auto mechanic and bartender and all sorts of things, but also was wanting to be a writer and a director, did some directing of theater. In fact, my father worked with all these great actors in the late 60s, right before they became famous. Like, he used to tell stories about John Boyd and Dustin Hoffman and Bobby Duvall. And me and my brother were just like, oh, he's just lying, he's drunk. You know, we thought like he was just bullshitting us. And when I got to Hollywood and got nominated for an Academy Award for Good Will Hunting, I was walking down the red carpet, and the most surreal moment of my life to this day was Dustin Hoffman turning to me and going, "I knew your father!" And I was like, holy shit, he's telling the truth.
Did you know early on that this was what you wanted to do, to be an actor?
I knew that I liked the feeling of acting. I liked it as a job. It didn't feel like a job to me. It felt like fun. You know, the stuff that I did as a child actor was that, luckily, I didn't end up sort of with the, crack pipe and the revolver version of the child acting life. But I did end up on a PBS Bank Street College educational television program, which is not that far from crack pipe and revolver, and where we did shows about science and math that were shown in 5th and 6th graders' classrooms, essentially. So we subjected 5th and 6th graders all over the country, maybe some of you in the audience, to the voyage of the Mimi. And while it was really painful and staged and goofy and childlike, I loved the feeling of it. I loved the responsibility of it. I loved that, we were doing something that felt special. And it definitely led me into feeling like, well, this is clearly what I want to keep doing.
Well, and it's also fascinating to me that your brother went into the same business. Now, was that because he was following in your footsteps, or was there just something in the water?
My brother, I don't know if he's in the tremendous Manchester by the Sea. You should see it if you haven't seen it. Really, great to share it. I'm very, I have my fingers crossed for him. But he and I both did sort of community theater, and we both had a really influential, actually high school theater teacher, a guy named Jerry Specca, who taught theater at Cambridge Ridge and Latin High School in Cambridge, and he was the principal influence for me and for Matt Damon and for my brother and for an actor named Matt Mayer, who plays the Klansman in my movie, and he's really great, and you hear that all the time, right? He's the Klansman, he's really great. And Max Casella and a number of other actors. So this was somebody who was a really important and influential acting teacher and taught us that it could be important and substantial and meaningful, and that it was a legitimate line of occupation to see through.
As part of getting ready for tonight, I rewatched Good Will Hunting, and if I'm not mistaken, a very young teenage version of your brother is in that, right?
That's right, yeah. He's great. He's the funniest thing in the movie, actually.
I'm not sure. Well, that movie, Good Will Hunting, obviously brings up the whole Matt Damon association. So is it true that Matt Damon really lived...
That and The Advocate have both brought up the Matt Damon situation. Yes, Matt Damon and I, were...
He's older than you, right?
He is old, much. Wow, is he old? It's a shame to see a guy get that old. You're as young as I am. But Matt was a few years older than me, and he went to the public elementary school with me, and I had been doing this Voyage of the Mimi thing, and he did the Wheelock College Community Theater. He'd done a couple of productions in, and when he was, he was 11 and I was 9, he told me that, "This is a theater, it's not TV, it's not about your face." I was like, "Okay, Matt." And from then on, he's been, just as irritating.
It's remarkable, though, that the two people so talented would grow up at the same time, a couple of blocks from one another.
We both were really interested in acting. We knew that's what we wanted to do. We used to come down. This was in an age before helicopter parenting, and we used to come down in our teenage years in high school and just come down to the city on the train or on the Trump Airlines. Remember Trump Airlines? Anyone remember Trump Airlines? And People's Express, and they had all those shuttles that were short-lived sort of business ventures. And we used to come down and audition for all kinds of terrible things that if we had gotten probably would have ruined our careers forever, like Mickey Mouse Club stuff and all that kind of thing. And I remember we came down and auditioned for the first Robin and the first Batman, many years ago. And it was like, that's what we wanted to do, and we felt very confident about it. And our parents, for whatever reason, just let us go take a crack at it.
So when did you start writing Good Will Hunting?
Started writing Good Will Hunting in 1992, I guess. Matt, I had left. I went to college at the University of Vermont because this girl that I was in love with went to Colby. And UVM was the best college I could get into that was in driving range of Colby. And she immediately broke up with me. And I broke my hip in intramural basketball, and that was the end of my University of Vermont career right there. And I promptly decided, this is not what I want to do. I want to be in writing, acting, directing. I want to be in show business, so I wanted to head out to LA. So I sort of packed up my stuff, just young enough not to know any better, and drove to Los Angeles. And Matt was his sophomore year at college, and that summer he called me and he said, "Hey, I want to come out." And he came out and stayed with me and was auditioning because we were used to that by then. We had been auditioning in Manhattan and stuff for it. And he said, "I want to write a movie where I'm a genius." I was like, I bet you do. What else happens in your movie where you're a genius? And he talked me into working on a movie where he was a genius. And it panned out.
Well, it more than panned out. It was a remarkable thing. It's one of those things that I sometimes think that every generation or so, the movie gods heap everything on one or two people to keep everybody else in the game. And that was the case for this movie, right?
We certainly got it heaped on us. Yeah, we had no idea. It's funny. One of my producing partners, who actually produced Live by Night, is now producing the Oscars. And she just emailed me a clip of me and Matt being interviewed by Roger Ebert in 1997 at the Oscars. We're about 11 years old, and we're not smart enough to know to be diplomatic. We're like bad-mouthing other movies. And it was, we were so young that we really didn't, we truly went to the Academy Awards. Then the year before, we had just watched it from our apartment in Somerville, Massachusetts. You know what I mean? It was that kind of quantum leap, and we didn't sort of know any better. We thought, this is how it works. Make a movie, get an Oscar. This is a terrific business. I love this.
And then I won't belabor the parallels and unparallels between your careers, but let's say that your career had its ups and downs, and then to me,
no matter what you do in this fucking life, you know what I mean?
He made
ups and downs.
He made Private Ryan, and you made Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, I was there.
So, if we could fast forward.
That's the kind of coverage I get from the New York Times. You know what I mean? Varying degrees of flattery.
Right. To fast forward to 2007, when you made Gone Baby Gone, which to me was, and to many people, the revelation. I think of all the Boston movies, and Boston movies have now become practically a genre of their own. This is the best. And we have a clip from it, and it's because it's the Amy Ryan character who is so wonderful in this movie. I don't think the clip begins to show what's good about this movie, but maybe we'll talk about that after we see the clip. So, if I'm not mistaken, you wrote the movie, right?
Yeah.
Right, and it's, not least, it's extremely well written. But how did the directing part, is directing something that you had been wanting to do, or is this something that just...
Yeah, I wanted to be a director. Matt and I had talked about maybe co-directing Good Will Hunting, and but we already were, propositioned ourselves as actors, and that seemed like probably being pushy enough. And we got Gus, and the whole question was moved. And I had done some student films, directed some student films that were just abominable. But I had done it. I had put the camera there and filmed the people and moved it over here and filmed those people. And so I thought, I really wanted to direct. And what happened was, as I went through a period of my career as an actor, which you alluded to so generously, where I was feeling less satisfied with what I was doing, I thought, I really would like to be directing my own material. I'd like to be the captain of my own ship. I'd like to be making my own decisions. I'd like to be, if we're going to get panned, we're going to get panned because it was my idea, not somebody else's idea.
See, to me, what's so remarkable about the movie, and remains remarkable, is its fidelity. I mean, it gets everything right. The look of it, you don't see exactly, but the peeling paint, the way people look. It's a movie. It's such a good movie. It doesn't look like a movie.
Yeah, that was one of the. Thank you very much. That was one of the big sort of. I feel like every movie can afford one big experiment. And in that movie, the experiment was, can we really mix almost documentary footage with a fictional narrative? Can we just go around Dorchester and Southie and shoot people on their streets and their homes and their businesses and interweave that with our fictional narrative and allow it to kind of, by osmosis, absorb some of that kind of, marinate in that realism a little bit. And that's what we tried to do with that movie. And there's the opening, and there's a middle sequence, and then 3/4 of the way through, there's another sequence where we use just sort of real footage. And I also cast non-professional actors to be the friends of Amy Ryan. She's got an actress who plays her best friend in the movie who's really great, and an actor named George Carroll who plays Casey's kind of best friend. Both of them were very legitimate Boston, unimpeachable characters. And there's something about telling the audience, see, he's friends with this person, so they must be credible,
But you had never really directed a movie on this scale before, where you did,
No, I was but I'd been in failed movies, so I knew it couldn't get worse. I was very nerve-wracking. It was scary, but it was thrilling and exhilarating, because I thought, I got to a point where, I remember having if you do a movie that's successful, one of the weird perks is that Warren Beatty calls you up and asks you to have lunch with him. And that's what happened. I had a successful movie, and Warren called me, and I couldn't believe it. This was like my hero. This is the guy who I wanted to be just like. And I was talking to Warren, and I said, Warren, I really want to get in directing, and how did you feel, empowered that you could do that? And he said, well, I just was on movies, and I'd look at the director and go, well, this fucking guy can do it. and there was a little bit of that too, and I felt I might as well be me as the next guy. And I decided to do sort of what I felt most comfortable with, which was Boston. I thought, if I know something kind of in my gut, I know what's real and what's not, I'll make a movie that's a real Boston movie about Boston with the right accents and the right locations and all that stuff. And that was the genesis of Gone Baby Gone.
And then you kind of did it again with The Town, which unfortunately we don't have a clip, but it has many of the same qualities, the fidelity, the feel for the neighborhood. But it has the additional thing that not only did you write it, not only did you direct it, you're in it. Yeah. Now, you're just adding to your woes.
Just dragging it down.
No, but what make? I started to want to use the directing to expand my acting career as well, to give me more opportunities to try different stuff, to afford me the chance to do the kinds of things I really want to do as an actor. I really got into filmmaking as an actor, and was always been my first love. And and it was such a good part. It's like, why cast somebody else? I know the director. I can just call him up. Hey, why don't you hire me, or I'll make your life hard. And that's sort of what I did, and everyone was too polite to tell me no. And Warner's was really supportive of me, and I had just come off of Gone Baby Gone, which is,
it was moderately well reviewed, but it had made, like 13 cents or something at the box office. And so I was not considered a viable commercial director by any stretch of the imagination. And yet Warner Brothers was very supportive of me and of that story. And the idea was always to sort of combine that kind of gritty, realistic, urban movie with almost like a Warner's gangster movie, like encapsulated in that sort of shell of a genre film with the robberies and that kind of thing, very heavily influenced by, movies from Angels with Dirty Faces to Heat, Scarface and others. So they gave me the chance to do it, and they were really generous with me, and they were patient with me, and as long as I didn't spend too much of their money, they were good.
And it went on to make a lot more than 13 cents.
We did good, yeah. We did good at the time.
So is that what led then to Argo?
Yeah, I mean, I had done, it's never really a straight line between 2 points, you know what I mean? There's always some sort of like slope to it or curve, but I did The Town. I went and did a movie with Terrence Malick called To the Wonder, which really made 13 cents. I mean, nobody saw that movie. People deliberately stayed away from it like it would give you cancer. You see that movie. But I loved it. I loved working with Terry. It was really fun, and it really showed me a different side of filmmaking, an experimental side of filmmaking, an impressionist side of filmmaking, a side of filmmaking where, as the director, the most important thing was what was your vision, what your idea that you wanted to show the audience was. And Terry was incredibly sweet, and I loved being in his movie. And that after that, I got first I got an article about this guy who had rescued these people out of Tehran, and then they sent me a script. Warner Brothers sent me a script and said, the Town had come out and had done well, but everyone was like, oh, it didn't get nominated for Academy Awards or anything like that. And so people were very like, you know what I mean? They call you up and go, hey, sorry, don't be upset. You're like, I wasn't fucking upset until you called me and patronized me. now I feel like I should be bummed out. But we got Argo going just after The Town was released. And I thought, here's a movie that I was a Middle Eastern Studies major in college. I really was interested in that region. I liked political films. I liked, the sort of All the President's Men type of cinema. I thought, there's a movie that I know how to do. This should be it.
We have a clip from Argo. Could we see that? That clip shows part of why I like this movie so much, and it's a thriller, as you say. It's a political movie. It's a real thriller. But there's a kind of playfulness about it, and a kind of lightness and feeling that.
Yeah, that was Chris Terrio is the guy's name who wrote that movie, who deserves all the credit for all the good that's in it, because he's just so brilliant. And when I read the script, I just was so won over. And I thought, my job is going to be to fuse these incredibly disparate tones. The idea that it's like a Hollywood farce, and there's sort of hijinks, you know what I mean, a zany producer, and we're trying to get actual prisoners out of Iran, which is the most serious, conjures up specters of our most serious, horrible situations. And I really didn't know if it would work until that day, when that scene that we shot, when Goodman did his side of his coverage, And I thought like, oh, he's making it all real. He seems like a makeup artist, and he seems like this real guy, and he seems like this stupid idea would actually be good. And that was the day I remember the executives from Warner's visited the set, because we shot it in Smokehouse, which coincidentally is across the street from Warner Brothers, so it was a short walk. And they came and they were kind of like, yeah, oh, great, it looks great, everything's going great. But I remember feeling like, no, you don't understand. I think the movie's going to work. Like, I think it actually will work now. Up until this point, I had no idea. But it was a good day.
Well, the other thing I think one feels as a viewer is this confidence on your part as a director. You feel that you're willing to take chances. The whole thing. I mean, do you feel that made I
remember feeling like Argo was a series of to use like a sports metaphor. It was like, to use maybe a Patriots metaphor. I don't know if there's any Patriots. Yeah. Thank you. A lot of Jets fans in the crowd, I see. Keep the car running. It was a lot of like, that movie I just need to execute on a lot of like 5-yard passes, like small plays. I thought the whole movie works. The idea is really smart. I got a great cast. And in order to not be overwhelmed by the idea of the process, I just thought like, you just have to complete these small plays each day, these reasonable goals. Mm-hmm. And, luckily I had people like John Goodman and Alan Arkin and Chris Terry who wrote it. And I had Rodrigo Prieto who shot the movie, who just shot Scorsese's Silence and a bunch of other great movies. And, I had all these wonderful people who sort of helped me, and I was able to get through it by just sort of compartmentalizing it and taking it step by step.
So, post Argo, it seems to me, you've really established yourself, and you could do any number of things, and indeed you have. One of the things that's curious to me is that you've made a big investment in Batman.
Thank you.
You earlier disparaged the cape, but I mean...
I wasn't disparaging of the cape. My cape was putting my kids through college. What are you talking about? That cape, I love that cape.
So when they came to you for Batman versus Superman, I mean, was this out of the blue, and and what?
A little bit. It was Warner Brothers was making the movie, and I had been in business with Warner's and wanted to stay in business with Warner's and felt really at home there and really respected and taken care of by them and thrilled. And they came to me and said they wanted to do a Batman and Superman version modeled on a very particular comic book, which was Dark Knight Returns, was Frank Miller's comic about Batman and Superman being at odds with one another. And it was a very dark tone, and it's well known in the comic book world. And I thought that's what we want to do. I definitely want to do that. And part of it was, I felt like I wanted to, for once, like get one of these movies and do it right, like do a good version of, because I hated Daredevil so much, you know what I mean? And I was in it, I did okay, don't feel bad for me. It frustrated me that I felt like we didn't get where, the Netflix show does really cool stuff with that, and I felt like the stuff was there for us to do with that character, and we never kind of got it right, and I wanted to do one of those movies and sort of get it right, and we did Batman versus Superman, and there was some alarm about my casting in the movie initially, but it worked out okay. And then we just finished Justice League in London last summer.
So were you apprehensive about taking on a role that's been done so often and so many times? And you had been Superman, by the way, in Hollywoodland. That's not...
I was not as apprehensive as I might have been. I had come through Argo, I had done this stuff, and to be honest, I've been to the top and I've been to the bottom. I had great praise, and I had people tell me that I didn't know what I was doing and I was worthless. And I had finally come to be sort of free myself of worrying about all the stuff other people said and whatever the commentary was and the editorializing was about me and my life, and to look at it from my own point of view and my own standards. And from that point of view, my son was 4 years old, and I was saying, I don't want it to be Batman. And he was like, Dad, you have to be Batman. And I thought, like, he's right. If you can be Batman, you have to be Batman. He thinks I really am Batman. He thinks I'm in Batcave right now. Eventually he's going to discover I have feet of clay, and it's going to be a steep therapist bill, but for now I'll take it. but I really, I wanted to try to make that movie, make it work, and find a way into the genre that was interesting.
Did you have to bulk up?
I did. I had to do a lot of and I was kind of glad about that. It's like one of those things where because you have to do it for the movie, you're motivated to do it. So I was working out, obsessively and just for fear of embarrassment, because I thought if I just walk out there as just regular, 40-year-old man, it's going to be hideous. I'll look like Adam West in the jumpsuit that he had, you know what I mean? It was like horrendous. You're like, Batman, you can't beat anybody up. But so it got me, encouraged me to get in the gym and get in shape. And Zack Snyder, who directed the movie, is very much into like fitness and stuff and all. He gets that connection.
So you just mentioned that you've made a sequel. And then there's going to be yet another sequel. But in the meantime, you're down, I believe, to write, direct, and star in a standalone Batman movie. Is that right?
That's the idea. Yeah, that's the idea. We still have to get a screenplay and get it together. I
thought you were going to write it.
Well, I am, but still doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be good. I'm a real believer in, not reverse engineering projects to meet a window or a date, but rather like when you get the right story, when you get the right idea, you get the right thing, then you make the movie. And so that's what we're doing, and I'm hoping to get that done, and spending a lot of time working on that, but also working on other stuff. And if I can find it right, there's nothing I'd love more than to do. Direct a standalone, iconic, great Batman movie. But it's been done by, Chris Nolan did 3
I was going to say
really
the bar
movies.
is pretty high.
Yeah. And so I'm really mindful of that, and so I'm not in any hurry to jam the mediocre movie down the pipe. I really want to make sure that we get, if we do it, we get the great version and one that's worthy of a tradition of guys like Tim Burton and Chris Nolan and Christian Bale. So.
This is a compliment, and which is that your movies don't have a recognizable style, any one style.
Thank you.
That is a compliment. It is, but each one does its job for what it's supposed to be, and you're not showing off in an autorial fashion. But I'm curious, obviously you've been influenced by directors. I'm curious who has helped shape your idea of what?
Well, that's an interesting point. I often look at a guy like William Wyler's career as a model, where you wouldn't necessarily put one William Wyler movie against another and know that you had a guy who was directing them and doing his best job on each one. Even Billy Wilder movies you knew were connected, or like Woody Allen movies are unmistakable from one another. And I never felt like I was a guy who had a kind of singular voice and a stamp, like anybody from whatever it is, Woody Allen to Kevin Smith to everybody in between who's, writer, director, auteur. I wanted to have variety in what I was doing and be surprise the audience a little bit more. You know what I mean? I certainly never likened myself to those very many greats, but I thought Scorsese movies are different, Coppola movies are different, Spielberg movies are different, Renoir movies, you can't tell rules of the game from, it's very, the directors who had disparate collections of work were really interesting to me, and those are who my influences were, mostly humanists, Renoir, and also, the contemporary sort of, all the great 70s movies. That was when me and Matt were, renting VHS tapes and staying up at night and geeking out on being like, Marathon Man!
How about the ones you've worked with, like Vincent and Martin Brest? Or, did they have any?
Marty probably taught me more about, and sounds like a weird thing to say because he directed the movie Gigli and everybody makes fun of the movie. I get it, but actually Marty Brest is maybe the best director I ever worked with, and it just goes to show you how filmmaking is a lot of it about luck and stuff that you don't control. You work just as hard and you're just as talented. Marty did Midnight Run and Son of a Woman and Beverly Hills Cop and a lot of great stuff. And he also did Gigli. And working with him on that, I felt like, in a way, I kind of ruined it for him because it would have been just a bad movie, but a bad movie without any, no one would have cared about it. You know what I mean? Like Angelina Jolie had a bad movie that year that came out, nobody cared. But but because I was dating Jennifer Lopez, that made it a big fucking deal, you know? And it was like, not only is it a bad movie, they're dating each other in the bad movie. So it got unfairly maligned. I mean, I literally remember there was a reporter doing like a stand-up, you know what I mean, with his camera out in front of the theater that Friday morning. Here I am outside of Gigli. As you can see, no one in line for the movie tonight. It's like, what is this, hurricane coverage? But Marty is a tremendously gifted filmmaker. And he really taught me to respect and appreciate actors. And he taught me about shooting a lot of coverage. And he taught me about, in fact, Robert Elswit, who shot Gigli, also shot The Town. And I had a great collaborative working experience with him. And, you know, him and Gus Van Sant is another one who Gus really taught me that, like, to let the actors make their own discoveries instead of feeling like you're the director and you have to foist all the decisions and discoveries on them. I would do like 2 or 3 takes. You know, we'd rehearsed this fucking movie a million times. And we did 2 or 3 takes and I went over to Gus and I said, Gus, what did you think? You know, and he was like, I don't know. What did you think? And there was like, that was actually very profound for me. Like, oh, I get to think. I get to have an opinion about whether this is good or whether this is bad and what the direction is I want to take this. And, you know, I've been very lucky. Like I said, I talked about Terrence Malick, whose obsession with the Z-axis I'll never forget. Like the camera always had to be moving forward. That was his Z-axis, Ben, go Z-axis, go out there. And he would always say, to me like, Ben, just go out and then tell her the lines just as you would. Just say them just as you would in real life. And I'd go out there and be like, honey, I think we need to go. And, oh, no, Ben, not like that. No, God, no. So apparently it wasn't just as I would. But,
So you're unusual in this business in that of juggling the 3 things. You're still writing, you're directing, and you're a movie star. Is there one that you like better than another, or is it just whatever seizes you at the moment?
well, if I had to pick one, I would pick directing because you get to keep a hand in every pot. You know, you're still working with actors, you're still working with the camera, you're still working with story and screenwriting, and you get to connect on all those various levels. I hope I don't have to. I want to keep on acting and directing as long as I, you know, clinging to the stage and pull me off. But I really, you know, I love it. I've had a wonderful life. I've been really blessed. I've worked with incredibly talented people who've given me an enormous amount, and I've had a chance to do some stuff that I found really interesting, and I love it. I love this business in this life.
When you're working, do the 3 guys ever get in each other's way? I mean, does Affleck, the director, say, Matt, Ben?
I get us confused too. Don't worry.
Does he say, you know, you could do that better, and does the writer come in? I mean, how do you keep all these people separate, or do you even try?
To be totally honest, the real hurdle is this: actors are vain. You know what I mean? That's what you have to be cautious of. And so when I'm directing a movie, I have to be very careful that the actor in the movie, his vanity doesn't overcome the movie, so I don't go back to the monitor and think like, oh, we could tilt up a little bit, a little double chin there. I don't know, maybe, you know, that Katharine Hepburn famously said to Sidney Lumet she didn't want to watch dailies on it was Long Day's Journey, or I can't remember what the movie was, but because she would only see her, you know, physical imperfections that she had any is crazy. But and there's a certain amount of that you have to get past. You know, it's like when you hear your own voice on your voicemail and you think, who is that idiot? You know what I mean? Why does that person sound uniquely stupid? You know, and yet you just have to like sort of coarsen yourself to the fact that you're not going to like this, what you see. It's varying degrees of terrible. You know, push through it and have, you know, and exert your standards. And that's really the thing. Other than that, the, you know, writing and directing and acting sort of get along great because they're all in service of the same thing. You know?
Well, I'm going to guess as well that, I mean, having been an actor has to, in some ways, make you a better director, right? I mean, you have to be, you know what it's like to be on the other.
Being a director definitely made me a better actor. I'll tell you
Really?
that.
The other
Being
way
a director,
around?
yeah, because even from like the audition phase, you know, like I used to go to auditions all the time and not have my the pages memorized and hold the pages and be reading them. And I never cast anybody who didn't have their scene memorized. You know, like little lessons like that I sort of learned where, you know, this is where you have to, if you commit to something and you want to audition, you have to show the director a version of what it's going to be. You not just expect the director to use their imagination to suspect that you might be genius, you know. And I went and I learned a lot about like putting out a lot of material into the editing room so that you have a lot that you can sort of calibrate editorially, giving yourself a wide range of options. So rather than trying to, 10 attempts at choice A, I'll do like, 2 at A, 2 at B, 2 at C, 2 at D, and that way have the room where if I realize all of a sudden I have to take a dramatic left turn, or if the audience is bored at this point, or all of a sudden they hate the character, or many surprises that is likely to happen to you in the editing room, I had the room to turn the knobs.
One last question, and then we'll open it up to questions from the audience, and I gather from the internet.
Oh. That's all I need.
Now, you belong to a generation of actors who have become humanitarians that have adopted humane causes. You've been a kind of hero with human rights to the Congo. It's true. Years ago, it was rumored that you might even run for office someday. Was that a rumor? And is it possible that...
Thank you. All right. The girl and the friend with the Patriots hat, so I know what state to run from. I like the idea of running for office. I think there's something really noble in public service. I've been really disillusioned by what I've seen in my real life and how it just is this relentless, cash suck where you're just glad-handing and making phone calls and doing cocktail parties and trying to gobble up as much money as you can for the next... being in Congress, it's a miracle they get anything done at all. They spend all their time...
They don't get much done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. Raising money. Although I will say that the one great thing about November of 2016 is that I all of a sudden became qualified to run for president.
On that note, why don't we take some questions? And the way this has to work is that they're going to put microphones, I believe, in either aisle. And so if you want to ask Ben a question, you have to come down. And then, meanwhile, I'll be looking and seeing what is coming from the internet. But it's not... Oh, there it is. Okay.
Go ahead. Oh, it's not on. Boom.
No, we got mic check.
There you go.
All right, Alex Chow, how are you? I know you've done incredible work with the Eastern Congo Initiative, and I think in this post-election time, I know myself, a lot of New Yorkers were wondering, like, how can we get active? How can we really jump in and really affect change? But we don't really know how to get started. So for the average citizen, what do you think is a good first step?
Gosh, I don't know. I'm sure there are a lot of people you could ask with better ideas than me. But, I think that the essence of being involved, and I think the lesson of this election is such that, we've kind of learned that any involvement, no matter how small, no matter how incremental, is not just important, but necessary. And that, each of us has a voice. And I don't even mean to be pat about it. I have a lot of friends and people that I love who didn't vote for the same person that I voted for, and that's America, and that's the way it goes, But the only thing there isn't an excuse for is a kind of apathy of like not caring, not educating yourself, not paying attention to the issues, not voting, and not participating.
You here? Hi. I'm a big Robin Williams fan, and I wonder if you could share some memories of him from Good Will Hunting and whenever.
What's that?
I wonder if you could share some memories of Robin Williams.
Robin, yeah.
From your Good Will Hunting and...
Yeah, Robin Williams. Robin was one of the great, sweet... I just emailed Matt, in fact, the other day and said, do you know that you are now as old as Robin was when he did Good Will Hunting? But Robin would appreciate that, I assure you. He was just this wonderful, charmed man, and in 1996, he was the biggest movie star there was. You couldn't get a bigger star to be in your movie. He was coming off of Good Morning Vietnam and Awakenings and all these gigantic Patch Adams and all these huge hit movies, and he was really at his zenith. And he had 3 weeks on our movie, and he came down there and he said, he was like, so guys, I want you guys to take me to like a real Boston bar. That's the worst idea you ever had. So we took him to this bar in South Boston and literally caused a riot. I mean, we went in, there was nobody there when we got there. We walked in with Robin and we're like, let's have a seat, let's have a beer, this is Boston, there it is, say hello. And all of a sudden people were like, oh my God, Robin Williams! I can't believe it! And no one's fucking bothering you! He got mobbed. I mean, public buses pulled over. Some woman who had a Hope Chest party. I don't even know what that is, but they showed up, brought the whole Hope Chest party to see Robin. He was magnanimous and sweet to everybody, and doing impromptu stand-up and great. And I think he got what he wanted out of that night, which was the spirit of New England. And he's just the best. I love him. He's missed. He is missed. Yeah.
Thank you.
So this is a question from the Facebook. What was the most challenging thing about making Live by Night? Live by Night. Sorry.
Live by Night is the most classic, formal, presented movie I've ever made. And it's much more difficult to do that where you plan out the shots, you've storyboarded them, you know that for the first minute and a half of the scene you're going to be in one shot and then you're going to come to this other shot because that's what you do and that's what you have. And if you make a mistake, it's like climbing without a net. And Live by Night, because of its deliberateness and because I wanted it to be a love letter to these classic Hollywood films, was very specific in that way. And I was lucky I had Bob Richardson shoot the movie who bailed me out all the time, every day. And
so his name again? I'm sorry.
Robert Richardson.
Okay, that's another question here. Who was the cinematographer? Because
his name's Robert Richardson. He has 10 Oscar nominations. I think he's won 3 times. He did he did all the great Oliver Stone movies in the '90s and did all the Scorsese movies and did all. He's a master. He's the kind of guy where you're like, so Bob, I was thinking maybe we could put the camera over here. And he's like, really? You don't want to do it there? Maybe no. There's something to that. It probably has merit. He's just that gifted and brilliant, and he really made the movie look great.
It does look great. Yeah, it has a wonderful look. Over there.
I just had a question about your journey as a director. So with Gone Baby Gone, it had the feel, to me anyway, as a kind of an independent film, and it was a little looser. And then a few years later, you direct The Town, and it's got these very tight set pieces, and you alluded to Heat earlier, and I mean it as the highest compliment, like Michael Mann. Was there a journey, even though you'd been in the business for a long, long time, in terms of stepping in the chair and what you learned between those two films?
Yeah, there was a huge journey. Each movie to movie has been a big journey for me. Thanks for the question. Even this movie, Live by Night, I wouldn't have been able to make had I not made the 3 prior. And Gone Baby Gone was in its most spare, and I made the sort of Spartan aspect of it part of the aesthetic because I knew that that's what I was capable of doing, and that just getting the raw actors in there and seeing the sort of raw city would have some potency, and it give me a chance to get my feet wet before I had to really start coming up with shots and creating a visual world. And as you said, I did some of that in The Town. There was a chase sequence, there was a shootout sequence, there was a couple of other choreographed scenes that were sort of by design, and slowly I was getting more into building and designing a movie. And then with Argo, I had the 3 parts of the movie in 3 different ways. I wanted to do the DC stuff, like all the President's Men, and I wanted to do kind of like Battle for Algiers, in Iran, and I wanted to create stylistic differences that you could feel in the movie that would help your impact in any way. And then getting to Live by Night was definitely the most challenging, and definitely the most, but it feels the most to me like a classic piece of cinema.
I have a question. In Live by Night, you're in almost every scene. Is that distracting from being a director as well? How do you go from one?
What I do? It's pretty simple. I would sit in the scene and we would play a scene. It would be me and you, and I would play it like I would as an actor. And we would just, and as an actor, you know, you have an instinct for how something's going and whether it's sort of in the right direction or not. And we might do it 2, 3, 4 times, and then I start to feel like, okay, that felt sort of kind of good. Let me go watch the monitor. And then you completely take off your acting hat and just look at the monitor, you know, with the cold, hard light of day, and see if it's any good. And so then I would sort of make selections and make some changes and some ideas and come back and bring them into the scene, and then forget about that all and just try to experiment and play with
But you're also having to worry not only about yourself, but about the other actors too, right? You've got to go then and, I mean...
That's why you're a wise man who casts great actors. I mean, that's really John Ford and Gus Van Sant, both probably the most... I read that John Ford, I don't know John Ford. I read that John Ford said, and Gus Van Sant told me personally, that the most important part of directing is casting. And I think that's really true. What happens is you get a guy like Chris Messina or Elle Fanning or Sienna Miller or Brendan Gleeson, and they have this part and they sit down, and not only all of a sudden does it flourish and does it become something spectacular, but it's something beyond what you could have anticipated. And that's one of the most satisfying aspects of directing.
And it gets easier to cast, presumably, the more successful you are, right?
To be honest, I got all my first choices for Live by Night. It was great. Everybody that I wanted said yes. It was wonderful. So the only person to blame is me.
Over here.
Hi, Ben. I'm Audrey. Can I get a quick selfie first?
What? No selfies.
No?
Sorry,
Okay.
no, sorry. Sorry.
I was wondering what advice you have for young filmmakers, and if you could go back, what you would tell yourself when you were just starting out.
Holy shit. Things I would tell myself, I can't repeat, but God, I wish I could go back and tell myself. No, you know, I think the thing about the real virtue, like when I was first starting out as a young filmmaker, there was a real divide because it was really hard to get a hold of resources, like to get a 35 millimeter camera and film. And I did this shitty horror movie called Phantoms about a sewer monster, and the whole virtue of it was that thank you. Virtue of it was that I bought all the short ends of film off the movie and kept them so that I could shoot some stuff. And now technology has afforded us all the opportunity to, you know, put together, tell filmic stories. Shooting and editing, even on your iPhone, you can do something that's like better than what John Cassavetes was doing in the 70s, technology-wise. And so there's really no excuse if you really want to do that, you want to be a filmmaker and you want to tell those stories, start making them. They don't have to be Citizen Kane. But just start making them and trying it out and trying your hand, and experience will teach you.
Before I go over there, I want to apologize to those people who are trying to Facebook in because it's not working. Technology has failed us.
Is it technology? Poor technician blames his tool.
Well,
you know?
May well be. Next question over there.
It's an honor to meet you in person. And before you made Live by Night, did you have a favorite or challenging scene that you shot as a director?
There was a lot of stuff. The thing that I liked, that I still like the most of my own, if I'm going to be just self-congratulatory for a while, is I like the beginning of Gone Baby Gone, which has my brother's voiceover in it, and it's got real shots of the city, and my brother walking through the city, and he called me like a couple of weeks ago because he did Terry Gross, like NPR interview. He's like, fucking went on Terry Gross, and they played me the beginning of Gone Baby Gone. I said, what? It's great. He's like, I sound drunk. I sound like I'm asleep. What the fuck would you have me do that? I was like, no, you're fabulous. Anyway, he thinks he sounds drunk. I think it's really, really good, and it's one of my favorite things that I've been involved in.
Over here.
Hi, Ben. It's nice to meet you. My name is Adnan, and I just want to say, first of all, that thank you for making great films for us. And my question, it's a bit weird and it could be hard-hitting, but I want to ask, what has been the most defining moment of your life?
You know, that's actually... Is that all? Well, I'll tell you what, it's actually not that hard a question to answer at all. I have 3 kids. And the birth of my children, and you know, the entrance of my children into the world by so far are more important than anything else that I've done in my career or otherwise. And they have a fabulous, fantastic mom who's the world's greatest mom, and it's really it's a joy to hang out with them. You know, that's, I think the meaning of life is to make good people. You know.
Over there.
My name is Jennifer.
So I've heard that before.
That was going to be my first. That was going to be my first question, but I'm not going there. I just wanted to start by I have seen your work really early. I mean, you talk about the science show. I think the first thing I saw you in was the HBO special when you were on
Steroids.
Steroids, yes. And then I worked
tough.
for them for 15 years, and I think I talked to you about Project Greenlight about 6 years ago, but I actually did pay at the box office for Jersey Girl and Geely, so I'm your biggest fan. And then
You could have been on the news.
And then when you started winning awards, everyone's like, I'm on board. I'm like, screw you. I was on board from day one. So anyway, my question to you is, I actually didn't know that Live by Night was a Dennis Lehane novel, and I love Shutter Island, and I love Mystic River. What do you do? What's the difference between writing original screenplays and adapted screenplays?
Well, I'm obviously, as you point out, not the first guy to come across Dennis Lehane. Both Scorsese and Clint Eastwood adapted his movies before I got there, and his books rather into movies. And he's just, he writes these great characters and great crackling, snappy dialogue and great, and he's got a great sort of punchy story engine that moves you along. He's a very cinematic writer for, this is the guy who wrote this whole scene for Live by Night where this, Model T police car catches fire and flips in the air and it's upside down in a pond. And it was so cinematic, I thought like he basically storyboarded it for me. And the virtue of adapting something is that you're standing on the shoulders of a giant. You're standing on the shoulders of someone who's already accomplished something and told a great story and done it in a great way. The difficult part about adapting something, obviously, is that you have to break it. You have to it's not going to be a 6-hour movie, so something's got to go, And as you start trying to make those hard decisions, you really put yourself to the test creatively. But I've mostly adapted stuff and done some original, but I like adapting. There's this kind of a long division sort of science to it that I find kind of elegant if you can get it right.
I think if I can add something, one of the remarkable things about Live by Night is that the book is a departure for him, sort of the way that the movie is for you. I mean, it's a historical novel. It's in a different style. He's trying to, I think, in these 3 books, expand his range, do something a little differently, just the way you are. So, I mean, it makes it a good collaboration.
Yeah, I think that's a salient point. It's absolutely right. I was trying to he's stepping outside of what he had done, and I was trying to do the same thing.
A couple more questions. Over there, one.
Hi.
Hi. You want a selfie?
I don't have any questions. Of course, I have a million questions, but they are out of my business. So, I'm from Eastern Europe, so I just want to tell you that over there, people adore you. They love you. And I just want to thank you. You are not only actor, you are not only writer, you are not only director, you are a good father, you are a good man.
I love this girl.
And this girl loves you more. So
thank you. You should come tour with me. We can do an act.
I just want to thank you,
Thank you, darling.
and
You're very nice.
I want to see you as our president. I'm going to vote for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Last question.
I have your vote.
Last question.
Hello, I have a question. If you would have chance to go back in time, would you still start off as an actor, or would you choose a directing path from the beginning?
I probably would focus a little bit more on directing earlier on and get a little bit more, done a couple more movies. I would like, the first movie I did when I was 33, and it would have been nice to have been directing movies in my 20s. I feel like I would just be that much more ahead of the game. But, I got in when I got in, and I still was way younger than Matt Damon ever was directing. Oh, wait a minute. So I'm doing okay. Thank you very much.
Ben has another engagement tonight, so I'm afraid that has to be the end of the questions. But I want to thank him very much. It was great.